Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is in Fort Lauderdale this morning. Reince Priebus is in Hot Springs, California. And let's get right to the news. Unemployment among African Americans, of course, is now nearly 17%, and that has caused African American leaders to complain and complain loudly that the president is not doing enough to change it. Well, last night at a big dinner here in Washington, sponsored by the Congressional Black Caucus, the president responded, did he ever? Here's part of what he said.
I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to complain. I'm going to press on. I expect all of you to march with me and press on. Take off your bedroom slippers. Put on your marching shoes. Shake it off. Stop complaining. Stop grumbling. Stop crying. We are going to press on. We've got work to do.
So, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I got to ask you just flatly, was that good politics? I mean, how is that going to shore up his African-American base? And I guess the other part, is that going to help to get independent voters in the Democratic fold this time?
Well, Bob, first of all, very quickly, congratulations on your 20th anniversary. And I was at the dinner last night, heard the speech, was in the midst of the crowd, and they gave the president thunderous applause. The crowd at the Congressional Black Caucus annual gala understands that the president has brought us from the brink of disaster where Republicans under George W. Bush had brought us to the precipice of economic disaster to now a point where we have the beginning of a turnaround. We've created 2.4 million jobs in the private sector over the last 18 months. We've got more to do, and President Obama has appealed to the Congressional Black Caucus and the attendees last night to close ranks, stand behind him, press on to make sure that we can continue to push for things like passage of the American Jobs Act. And that's what we need congressional Republicans to do. We need to come together as a country. We need to focus on a shot in arm that the American Jobs Act would represent. And that's what he was trying to impress upon them last night.
Well, Mr. Priebus, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Bob, Debbie's got a real problem this morning, and her problem is that she can't escape the facts on where we are in this American economy. And the facts are, Bob, that presidential elections are decided by the American people asking themselves the question as to whether or not they're better off today than they were 3 or 4 years ago. And here are the facts. Unemployment is at 9.1%. We've added $4 trillion to the national deficit. With 2.4 million people are unemployed. So my question to the chairwoman is, can she point to one economic statistic in this country that Barack Obama has made better? And she can't.
Well,
can she name one?
All right. Well, here's your chance.
One.
That's ludicrous. Yes, I can point to the fact that before Barack Obama was inaugurated, we were bleeding 750,000 jobs a month. And now you fast forward, and that was thanks to the Bush administration that focused on making sure that we had 2 wars totally unpaid for that plunged us from a record surplus to a record deficit, passed a prescription drug plan that, while good for seniors to make sure we cover their prescription drugs, unpaid for, 2 Bush-era tax cuts for the wealthiest, most fortunate Americans, unpaid for. So the deficit that we find ourselves in today, please let me answer your question.
People are hurting in this country.
Please let me, excuse me.
People are hurting in this country.
Let her finish her
now,
answer.
Now, 2.5 years later, we have turned the corner. We're no longer dropping like a rock. Now we are moving forward. We've had 18 straight months of job growth, added 2.4 million jobs to the private sector month after month. Passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, saved the American automobile industry, which every Republican candidate for president would have let go down the tubes.
Ms. Wasserman Schultz,
yes, that and more.
Okay.
Well,
listen, quick response to that.
Well, it sounds like, Bob, well, it sounds like the new slogan is no longer hope. It sounds like the new slogan is no longer hope and change. It's, hey, it could have been worse. Great bumper sticker, Debbie. I hope it works for you. But the reality is that Americans are hurting in this country, and the reason why you're losing races like in New York 9 and all across the country, the president is upside down in your home state of Florida. He's upside down in all the battleground states. And guess what? He's upside down in California, and
That's
he's
actually
losing
not
in
true.
Massachusetts because Americans understand that this president hasn't cut it, and he's promised the world, and he's delivered nothing.
All right, I want to just quickly shift because I want to ask you
Good talking
about some
points,
big
Reince.
news down in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's home state, Mr. Priebus, that happened last night. Businessman Herman Cain pulled off an upset in the latest straw poll down there in Florida. He walloped the front runner for the Republican nomination, Rick Perry, who had campaigned hard down there and made a big point of saying he was campaigning hard, and Mitt Romney, who didn't officially compete. Mr. Cain makes a great speech, but I don't see any particular segment of the Republican Party that has been behind him, Mr. Priebus. What does that say about the Republican field that Herman Cain won a straw poll down there?
Well, Bob, look, I mean, a lot of different candidates are winning these straw polls. Herman won a couple days ago. You know, Michelle Bachmann won in Iowa. Polling shows Perry and Romney back and forth. Rick Santorum won a straw poll in Pennsylvania. I mean, I know he's from Pennsylvania, but he won that straw poll. Here's the deal. We're going to have a rigorous debate in this country on our side of the aisle. We are going to put up an articulate, intelligent alternative to this president. And I think that people are hungry in this country. Not necessarily for all Republican answers or all Democratic answers. They're hungry for real, authentic people to lead this country, and guess what they have? They have a record to measure this president on, and his record
Bob.
is Solyndra,
Well, let
which
me
is
just
south
ask
of
you
me,
this.
where 1,100
me-
people
Bob, I
lost
would
their
like to
job,
just
and the
talk
president's
about
policies
Mr.
aren't working.
Priebus, let me ask you this question. Do you think this suggests that somebody
Sure.
else ought to get in the Republican field, maybe Chris Christie of New Jersey?
You know, listen, I said before, look, I'm happy with the field. I think it's a great field. And you know what? Yes, is there time through nomination processes technically to still get in? Sure there is. I mean, it gets harder and harder as you get closer to Iowa. But listen, I mean, the fact of the matter is that we're having the debate on our side of the aisle. The horsepower, the excitement is on the Republican side of the aisle. And the reason why is because people in this country want to save this country economically, and this president isn't doing
Bob.
the trick.
Congresswoman?
Bob, since I'm from Florida, let me weigh in on that. It doesn't much matter
Where
which
the
of
president
9
is upside down, too.
excuse me. It doesn't much matter which one of the Republicans get nominated, because they're all the same. This will be a very stark contrast. They are all embracing and bear hugging the Tea Party, moving to the right. They can't move to the right far enough. No matter which candidate is nominated by the Republican Party, they all favor privatizing Social Security, which would pull the safety net out from under our seniors. They all favor ending Medicare as we know it and embrace the Ryan plan to turn it into a voucher program. They all are wrong
Right.
on
And
immigration reform when it comes to Hispanics in this state. So, as a Floridian, I can assure you, Mr. Priebus, that when it comes to the dramatic contrast between Barack Obama and his notion that we should preserve Social Security and Medicare, that we should make sure that we acknowledge that there is an immigration problem and we should come together around comprehensive reform.
Well, Bob,
My state will go
respond
in
to
the
that.
win
Let me
column.
respond
Excuse
to
me,
that.
not until I finish. My state will go until in the win column for President Obama again, because the extremists in the Tea Party control your party, and this is the second debate in a
Debbie,
row
we
now
only have
that
12
you
we only
can't
have 12
embrace
minutes here, Debbie.
that you can't embrace the candidates that are there now, because you know all of them are wrong for America.
All right, one last
Bob,
response from you, Mr. Priebus.
You bet. You bet. Here's the problem. In spite of all those words, her problem is that in spite of all of this hyperbole, the president is now losing in Florida. And you know, you can talk hypotheticals all day long, but guess what? Debbie and the party and the Congressional Committee on the Democratic side tried all of this in New York 9 in a heavily Democratic district, and guess what? They lost. So this has already been tested in a Democratic district. These talking points have been tested.
It was tested in
and
a
they're
Republican
losing.
district in
And
New
they're
York
imploding.
26, and we
They're
won.
imploding. And their base is
All
imploding.
across the country.
Hispanics aren't on board.
All across the
African
country,
Americans are
voters
leaving the
reject
president. His base
ending Medicare
isn't
as we
there,
know it,
Bob,
Reince.
and that's his problem.
All right, I could just let the both of you just keep on going here because you're
probably
talking
could.
together, separately, and so on. Thank you all both for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Obviously,
God
a
bless you, Bob.
conversation to be continued.